I half listen to things as I'm working. If I've got something challenging to work on, music that I know, so that I am not distracted, and if I'm doing something boring, maybe an interview. An interview by the BBC World Service with Nigella Lawson just now finished, and I never saw any of her shows because I'm not interested in cooking. Not even that interested in eating. I'm a robot. I don't have any passion. Anyway, to finish off the interview, and they were going into all the emotional aspects of food and all that sort of stuff, and society and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, they asked Nigella Lawson, and in these uncertain times, world on the brink stuff, in these uncertain times, do you think some of your philosophies around food and everything are even more poignant or whatever? I don't know how. Yeah, they asked a question, something like that, and she said, "When is the world not on the brink?" She said, "The world is always in uncertain times," and isn't that the truth? We're always on the brink of disaster. It's not like just now we've invented conspiracy theorists. And we didn't even need the internet to have heaps of those running around back in the old days. The world's been about to end every day of my entire life so far, and I think it's been that way for the last... How long have humans been around? Depends how you define it. I think the world's been on the verge of absolute destruction for the last, well, I'll say 5,000 years. How does that sound? Because the world's very divided between left and right. When hasn't it been that way? I read Rome history sometimes, and it's better now, right now. I know coronavirus. Well, look, we're all on the brink, of the world ending, because if I walk out the front right now and get hit by a truck, that's the end of the universe for me, So we're all dying. We're all on. It's amazing people don't panic. Because if the entire world was just about to be hit by an asteroid, people would be running around in circles screaming, and yet, for all of us, we're all dying. I'm actually, I'm getting closer and closer to certain death all the time, and here am I just relaxing. Why aren't I running around in circles screaming? I don't know the answer to that. Mainly, I think, because I'm a robot. I don't care. I don't know whether I ever will. I think I'll get right to my deathbed and go, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what I wanted to say about, Joe Biden is... Joe Biden Jr., the grandson of the current Joe Biden, Well, no, maybe this Joe Biden, because maybe I'll be on my deathbed this evening after I get hit by that truck. But I liked that answer by Nigella Lawson. She didn't entertain what was, I think, a fairly silly question in these uncertain times. Uncertain, compared to... now, I was listening to something about the US. Is the US divided at the moment? And if it is, are you sure it's more divided than it was in 1970, for example? Now, I can't remember the stats, but I think they had something like 4,000 either bomb attacks, attempted bombings, or bomb threats internally in America, in what was a real terrorist type of year, in 1970. And I often spruik 1970, 1971 as being a high point of Western civilization. And yet, 1970 was, the US was in uproar that year. Vietnam and a whole lot of other things going on too. Flower power colliding with cynicism and all that sort of stuff. A lot of things were going on. Nixon, just watch an episode of whatever show that used to be on by Michael J. Fox. What was that show called? When Michael J. Fox was on Nixon's side and his father was a hippie, and his mother was a hippie. It was a very divided society, America, in 1970. Are you sure it's more divided now? Just because you can see the arguments on Twitter? Maybe it was just as bad then. And are you sure the US is in such a high state of destruction that, the Republic is about to fall? Maybe it will linger on for another 100 years. Because Rome was in a similar state with the Gracchi brothers about 100 years before it fell. And it survived people, dictators that were Donald Trump on steroids and with talent. Donald Trump is an amateur compared to these guys back in Rome. I don't think the world is that bad at the moment. To the extent that it is, no worse than plenty of other times in history. When the bomb went off in Hiroshima, that was a bit rough, wasn't it? Are you sure that wasn't a worse time than now? I know the virus is bad, but we had the Spanish flu in 1921. Are you sure that wasn't worse? Is this the worst time in history? Is the world more divided than it has ever been before? And, are we on the brink of just a couple of families running the entire planet? Well, actually, I think that might actually come about, actually. That is an issue, I think. A very few people owning all the wealth in the world. I think that is an issue, but it's a long way. My worries about that are a long way from the worries that a lot of QAnon type people, conspiracy theorists have about a shadowy elite, Illuminati, actually planning the whole thing. It just sort of comes about a bit. It's a natural progression because it happened in Rome. A very few families ended up owning all of Rome, and that to a very large extent precipitated the fall of the Roman Republic to be replaced by the Roman Empire. And just up there on my bookshelf somewhere, one of my bookshelves, I've got Cicero's impassioned defense of the Republic, but he was part of a mafia elite, essentially, a mafia elite that was running all of Rome. Is the US close to that yet? No. I think Donald Trump, for example, a lot of people think he was, he's a stepping stone on the way to the next Julius Caesar or whatever, but he's such a small cheese stepping stone. He's nothing compared to some of these other guys. Sulla, Marius, like Marius, like he had, he was a general. And then Julius Caesar, for goodness sake, put him up next to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump looks like a pile of jelly. He's got nowhere near the charisma and power and everything else that Julius Caesar had. Maybe Julius Trump is yet to come. But the point is the world that bad at the moment? Oh yeah, because of social media. But I don't know about that. Word used to get around. Like back in 1970, for example, you couldn't walk out of a supermarket in most places in the United States without finding pamphlets underneath your windscreen wiper. Those were tweets, 1970s style, and pamphlet dropping was a huge deal, and it worked. But word can get around so quickly now. We've had big things. We've had viral moments in Australia, plenty of them, before the internet came along. Lindy Chamberlain, for example. There was no one in Australia that practically that wasn't yabbering about that and having massive opinions. She was convicted by, a huge mob of people in their own homes. Virtual, a virtual Supreme Court, of public opinion. How did that happen? How did everyone get involved when they didn't have the internet? People used to still get involved before the internet. We don't need Twitter to have our opinions, our posts go viral. You could go viral back then before the internet easily. People hanging off every word that you said and all that sort of stuff. It was possible, and it happened. And if nothing else, you could do a pamphlet drop. But I don't know that the world is more divided now. I don't know if the US is more divided now than it has been in the past. Yes, it is, you might say. It's more divided in 2021 than it was in 1970, for example. And I say, to which I'd say, all right, prove it. But how much do you know about 1970? I accept you probably know a fair bit about 2021, but how much do you know about 1970? Or are you just assuming that it can't be as bad as 2021 because you're in 2021 and wherever you are matters more than wherever anyone else is in another time in history? We've had mental times in history. I think World War II was a biggie. World War One. And the other world wars that went before that. World War Zero, World War -1. There were some big wars in Europe. There've been massive times all through history, and the world has always been on the brink, always been divided. I think. I don't know whether the world is on the brink right now. Chaos is just around the corner, because people have been telling me that all my life. Like 15 years ago, the end of the world is coming. When the white smoke goes up, when the next pope is elected, that'll be the last pope ever, because the world is going to end when that pope ascends the throne. So we all better get up to the top of a mountain right now. And wait for the lamb, to suck us up or something. Well, actually, all those the massive conspiracy stuff that was going on. What was that? What was his name that blew up the Oklahoma? And then what was the other place? Jim, what's his name? When they all drank arsenic or something. Because there's been lots of the Oklahoma city bombing, whatever it is. What was his name? I forget. We've had big moments. Are these the worst times ever? Are we on the brink of collapse? No, we were on the brink of collapse in 2000 and... I'm losing my decades. World Trade Center, 2001. That was a much bigger deal. The world was on the brink. When those planes went into the World Trade Center, we were on the brink, far more than we're on the brink now in 2021 with this, piddly little Donald Trump, storm the Capitol, blah, blah, blah. Try flying a couple of 737s into the two biggest buildings in America, and also fly another 737 into the Pentagon, fly it into it. I saw a riot at the Capitol. I didn't see anything like this though. And there was another one headed for the White House, and I think they wrestled the guy down, the terrorist down to the ground, and and crashed the plane on purpose. This is massive stuff. All we have now is nothing. Donald Trump just got voted out, and it's just sort of disappearing with a whimper, not a bang, isn't it? Everything, all the drama that everyone predicted, there was none of it. In fact, it's pretty boring in 2000. The coronavirus is a big deal. I'll give you that much. But I'm not even sure in the broad sweep of history that's going to end up. Look, it's a big deal for all the people who died, absolutely, you know, and it'll be a big deal for me too if I walk out in the street later, get hit by a truck. And it's a big deal too, the virus, for people losing their jobs. But people have always lost their jobs for various reasons. Global financial crunches. I remember 1990? When was that? You know, Paul Keating's era. Interest rates went up to 17.5%. Half of Australian businesses went broke. Divorces all over the joint. People jumping off buildings. I'm not sure. Yes, coronavirus is killing a lot of businesses. Hey, I mean, my business has dropped, I think, you know, something like 50% of its earnings. You know, I'm okay, but, you know, I'm in a shed, aren't I? I don't know that the world is that divided now compared to other times.